Much like Season of the Deep weapons, Season of the Witch weapons haven't been receiving too much hype either, although this time around it is definitely not because of their actual weapon models. Let's take a look at the offerings and maybe discuss why the past couple of seasons have kind of felt empty there. Kept Confidence is a 140 RPM strand hand cannon. This is the first of its kind in the game, with the only other strand cannon... yeah, that'll play. Strand Cannon being Round Robin, a 120 RPM from Neomuna. Unfortunately, that's pretty much where the novelty ends for PvE players when it comes to perks. The only reason I think PvE players even need to look in this weapon's direction is if they desperately want a Strand primary and really like 140 RPM hand cannons, although hand cannons did get a rather significant buff in Season 22. The PvE perk pool for this weapon is a bit weak, with something like Stats for All or Loose Change being the only two things I'm interested in for the first column. The second major column doesn't really get that much better, with multi-kill clip leading the charge, in addition to collective action, which is a perk I've only really liked so far on arc subclasses due to its ability to be active almost 100% of the time there. With a more strand-specific loadout, given some of the recent additions to the game, collective might be a little more viable there. But no hatchling is a bit of a letdown, especially after hand cannons and threadlings were buffed. PvPers, on the other hand, can add yet another pretty fine, solid 140 RPM hand cannon to their kit, with perks like Killing Wind, Quick Draw, Eye of the Storm. And although the stats of this weapon are still pretty outclassed by other top tier options, I've still heard quite a lot of good news from people about the feel of the gun. I'm still getting used to it myself, but I also don't think the average casual player has too much of a preference if they already have something that they enjoy using. Locus Locutus is a 90 RPM stasis sniper rifle, the first since Thoughtless from Season 16, although we did have a Distant Pull, which is a 140 RPM, last season. Thoughtless's main perk combo for PvE was Overflow and Firing Line, which Locus can also get. Locus does come with a little more variety on the weapon though, stuff like Discord and High Ground for PvE, Opening Shot for PvP. Discord is a great option for those who want to use their snipers in PvE a little more freely, as it can refund shots that get kills while Discord is actually active. But after using this thing in some Tier 3 altars of summoning, I can't ever say I really want to put it back on. Snipers are just not really that entertaining in PvE right now, and altars is too high energy to be sitting in the back trying to snipe stuff. On the PvP side of things, I don't think there is a ton of interest outside of something like Keep Away and Opening Shot. High Ground is only a 10% damage boost in PvP, and you cannot be in the air if you want it active. PvPers have access to better snipers like Defiance of Yasmin and Beloved, but if you don't have them or are incapable of getting them, then maybe it's worth a shot. Moving to the energy slot, Brya's Love is a 180 RPM Void Scout. Doom of Chelchis is the most recent 180 Void Scout coming from the King's Fall remaster. Brya's Love is at absolutely no shortage of good perks though, this being one of the best offerings of the season. Rapid Hit and Keep Away in the first major column, with the second column having Explosive Payload, Destabilizing Rounds, which is a first for Void Scouts, the new perk Precision Instrument, just giving you more damage for hitting constant crits, Frenzy, and Golden Draghorn. Doom of Chelchis doesn't have the breadth of perks, but it still has very strong combos of its own if you already own it. However, at the end of the day, it's still a 180 RPM scout, and if there is any weapon type in the game that's just fine, it's scout rifles, especially 180 RPM scout rifles. They're fine, they're okay, they're nothing that special. You could probably do a bit better, all things that I heard quite a lot of when I was in college. Look at this high octane footage. I'm doing close to nothing. Granted, I'm fighting against shields, but still. If the plink plonk life is for you, then by all means. But this weapon is a non-starter for me simply because scouts themselves are just too tame to really be interesting. The Eremite is a 960 charge speed solar fusion, the newest one since Iota Draconis from season 15. This one's a bit better though, with it being capable of getting both reservoir and controlled burst, with controlled burst being the new hotness for sustained fusion damage. Very new perk to the game, relatively speaking. It's only been on raid or nightfall weapons up until this point. It also comes with Envious Assassin, which has been made much easier to use and thus can start having a greater impact on the game. Envious pairs very nicely with both of these top fusion perks, and I see very little reason to use anything else. Heal Clip is a new perk that heals you and nearby allies after a kill when you reload, but when it comes to damage output, this does not contribute anything to that equation. If you need something for a single target, you're going to use Controlled Burst, but if you want something for slaying out, Reservoir Burst is going to be more up your alley with the explosions and the big boom and the Envious Assassin, and you get it. Moving to power weapons, we have Eleatic Principle, another 900 RPM arc machine gun with Plank's Stride, 900 RPM arc machine gun, coming out most recently in Season 18, so this time last year. Unfortunately, this machine gun isn't really that much better, if it even is at all. The first major column has no sort of ammo restoring perks. It barely has a reload speed perk, the only one being Ensemble and technically Eddy Current. Target lock in the second column shines a little bit of light on this thing, in addition to maybe Golden Tricorn on some sort of arc loadout. Adrenaline Junkie is there too. But I'm not really too inspired to work with this thing when Retrofit does the whole 900 RPM thing pretty well with 4 times the charm and target lock, as the string of bad luck for arc machine guns continues. Terminus Horizon from Spire of the Watcher was alright. That's really about it. Performance in-game, it wasn't too bad, but it just doesn't really have anything that makes it stand out from the crowd other than the fact that it's arc. And even then, I'm kind of like, whatever. Finally, Semiotician is the second strand rocket launcher we've ever gotten following crowning Duologue from Solstice of Heroes last season. Duologue could get some decent stuff. It has Envious Assassin, which this new rocket does not. Semi can come with some good stuff too, though. First major column, I'm seeing Field Prep, and that's really about it for me. Second column can get you Frenzy, Explosive Light, and Bipod if that turns out to be good, which I think it is to a degree, but I haven't done much testing yet. I think the fight is still between very specific setups of Envious Assassin, Bipod, and Bait and Switch. This rocket does not come with Envious or Bait, though, so I wouldn't expect it to be breaking into any endgame metas unless you really need a strand rocket specifically. It's a rocket with average perk selection. Again, nothing very remarkable here. So why have the weapons of the past 2 seasons felt so bland? Well, it's something that I've spoken about recently. I think we're finally starting to hit the upper limits of what can be power crept in the game. Bungie has done a good job of unofficially sunsetting weapons of the past by making new weapons have different perk combinations or just better perks overall. Stuff like elemental perks, Incandescent, Volt Shot, have also led the way as we push into a world where building around specific elements or elemental effects is the most important. We don't live in a world where Outlaw Rampage is the only god roll anymore. Now, not every perk Bungie puts out is a hit, but I still appreciate that they're trying to do some new stuff. But I think we're starting to hit the ceiling of how strong certain things can be that would be reasonable for the game. Look at what is being considered as the meta rocket. Cold Comfort from Ghost of the Deep with Envious Assassin and Bait and Switch. Huge damage bonus, not to mention the ability to cram several rockets into the chamber at once, no reloads needed. This is after we've gone from something like Royal Entry, which had Clown Cartridge, then we had Hothead, Clown plus damage perk, And now we have this, Envious Assassin and Bait and Switch, which are just better versions of things from the past. Now think about what Bungie would need to do to get you interested in a new rocket after this one. It would need to be better than Cold Comfort, which can start with a 3-rocket lead thanks to Envious and cramming 4 rockets into the chamber at once with a 35% damage boost. How are they possibly going to tempt you? They would need to deliberately design a new perk with the sole intent of dethroning the current best perks. This is the same issue we're having with seasonal weapons. If they're not capable of beating out stuff that we currently have or have gotten from the past, we don't care, even if they're close. The only times we do care is when something comes out that's on par or better than the current best thing, or when an archetype that hasn't had a new version come out in a little bit comes out, like the Eremite Fusion versus Iota Draconis from Season 15. Eventually, we're going to run out of those situations. Again, Bungie has done a good job in trying to power creep us in a responsible way, in a way that a lot of people won't end up noticing, but trying to get us to use new stuff is going to get harder and harder as more and more guns reach this new ceiling, this perk ceiling, or what I believe to be a ceiling. Granted, this tends to be more of a problem for veteran players who already have a vault full of god rolls versus newer or more casual players, so maybe it's not as big of a problem as I'm letting on for the entirety of the game or the community. After all, not everyone is going to have access to every gun or every pattern. But I know that this has been on the minds of some people when I'm seeing the discussion of weapons sunsetting again, not prompted by Bungie, but by the community. It's not commonplace right now. I see it every once in a while peeking up, but it's the fact that it's even being acknowledged at all that there is a sign that something may need to happen in the somewhat near future. I give it another year unless Bungie can continue to come out with perks that are technically power creep, but just maybe don't feel like it as much. Also consider that because crafting is a thing and it's possible to get god rolls easier than ever before, that it makes sense that Bungie wants to put some of the toppest of tier stuff in things like the raid, which are harder than average content, or dungeons, which don't have craftable weapons, as a way to reward players for doing the hardest things the game has to offer. Even Trials has had its share of top-tier PvE weaponry. The Strand grenade launcher that just came out is essentially the best of its kind, also featuring Envious Assassin and Bait and Switch, go figure. So for people with access to those types of weaponry, you can see why Bungie maybe doesn't want to have top-tier #1 meta stuff all coming out of vendors where you spam a bunch of engrams and cores and all of a sudden you have an enhanced god roll weapon. They still need to also incentivize endgame content somehow, and the more you have from seasons past, the fewer and fewer upgrades you're eventually going to see. Thank you all very much for watching. That's my thoughts on the Season 22 weapons. I'll see you next time.